Hello, welcome to Ian's Bricks, and today I'd like to talk about my experience as a Lego trader at the recent Chichester Brick Festival. This was held on Sunday the 23rd of November 2025. It was the first time a brick festival had been held in Chichester. Wasn't quite sure what to expect. I booked my traders tables, or at least paid the deposits for this, probably about a year ago. So it's sort of been a show that's been I've been waiting a long time to get to this show. It's relatively local to where I live. It's an hour and 10 minutes drive away, so that's not too bad. And yeah, I've been to Chichester a few times. It's very nice. It's a city, but it's a small city. Very nice place. Quite an affluent area as well, which sort of bodes well for selling Lego and things like that. So the ticket sales for the show prior to the show were very, very good indeed. The 11 o'clock ticket threshold sold out about 3 weeks before the show. That's always a very, very good sign. You know it's going to be busy. And the 12 o'clock tickets sold out around about the day before, so I knew there was going to be a lot of people going to the show. I was sort of also aware as well that the venue wasn't the largest. There certainly are much larger venues, but it was a reasonable sized sports hall. But the good thing about having a slightly smaller sports hall is there were fewer traders in there. I know I've been to some shows where there've been 35 plus traders, and you struggle to make money at those shows just because there's so many different traders and so much choice. But there was probably only around about 18 to 20 different traders, and not all of those were selling sealed Lego sets like myself. So the day of the show, it was a very grey day. It was raining when I got there. It was obviously dark. It doesn't get light until sort of the time I arrived there, but managed to get the car unpacked very, very well. I've already done a whole video of how my day went, of unpacking the car and setting up and things like that. But I always bring sealed Lego sets to show, so I don't tend to trade in minifigures. I sometimes bring some poly bags, but not today. But in total, I really did cram my car as full as I could, knowing that it was likely to be quite a busy show. And I took a total of 183 different boxed sets. And they're all sort of sealed, brand new sets, from sort of the really big sets like modular buildings or large vehicles to the sort of smaller promos and gifts with purchase and brick heads and things like that. So a real sort of mixture of different sets. But there was 183 of them altogether. And on the day, I actually sold 79 different sets, which does mean that I had 104 sets left, so not quite half the sets that I sold on the day, but what I will say is the sets that I sold were actually very, very good. There were quite a lot of larger sets that I took to the show. I'd managed to get hold of some older and larger sets fairly recently, took quite a lot of those to the show, and they did very, very well indeed. So of the 79 sets that I sold, there were quite a few sets that I had that were sort of over £140 in value. It was a very, very good show for selling these kind of sets. So I'll go through some of these larger sets that I did manage to sell and how much I sold them for. I sold 21311. That was the Voltron set. That was an idea set. That was sold for £299. So that was my biggest single sort of sale of the day, as it were. I also sold the Sopwith Camel 10226 for £220. I actually had two of those with me at the show. Sold one of them was left over. I also sold the Modular Bookshop 10270 for £220. Later on in the show, I sold the Ghostbusters Ecto 1 car 10274. Now, I did actually have this on at a slightly higher price, but it ended up selling for £200. The guy was a cash buyer, and as well as buying that, he did buy a couple of other things as well. So I had a look at what I'd bought the set for, and I was sort of in one of those moods where I'm like, I've had a good day today, so I still made a profit. So don't worry about that. It was a reasonable profit still on that. But yes, I took £200 for that. I also sold the Wall-E set, the original Ideas 21303. I sold that for £215. I also sold the Saturn V 21309, £199. That sold. I think that was an Ideas set as well. A lot of Ideas sets going going on here. This is also an idea set, The Big Bang Theory 21302. I sold that for £175. Again, I had 2 of those, sold one of them. I did have one of them left at the end of the day, but that's fine. I can take the extra one to another show. I also sold for £170 the VW Camper, the original red version, 10220, as well as another vehicle, the Porsche 911 Technic, 42096. And that was sold for £170 also. The bus, the London bus, 10259, I sold that for £150. And right at the bottom of this particular list was the minifigure tribute, the pirate, Redbeard the pirate from the Lego house that I picked up recently, set 40504, and I sold that for £140. I actually took 2 of those to the show and I sold them both for £140. So you can see straight away that I've sold a lot of big sets. I have been to some shows before where you take bigger sets and they just don't sell, or you might sell 1 or 2. But I was literally, loads and loads of what I consider large sets, over £140. There were 4 other sets over £100 that I sold, and having a breakdown of all the other sets as well. 9 of the sets that I sold were sold for between £50 and £99. 40 of the sets, so the majority of sets that I sold, were priced between £20 and £49. There were a lot of promo sets within that as well, and quite a few brickheads and things like that. So that's a very, very popular price point for these shows. And there were also 14 sets that I sold that were £19 or less, or £20 or less. So it's a good sort of mix, really. But yeah, you can see that a lot of people, when they're buying things, that sort of £20 to £50 price bracket is a very, very good price bracket to sell, even on a sort of a bad show, or a show that not many people are buying things. That's the kind of thing that people will be spending money on the smaller sets. So, of the sets that were left, of the 104 sets that were left, obviously there's a good sort of mixture of sets as well. 11 of those sets were priced at over £100. So there were still quite a lot of sets left that were sort of quite valuable and quite worth a lot of money. That does include 76139, the 1989 Batmobile. I think I had that on at £475. Didn't really get a lot of interest at that, so I might need to relook at my price for that one. I might lower it just a little bit for the next show. We'll have to wait and see. And as I said before, I had one of the Sopwith Camels, one of the Big Bang Theories left as well, and I also didn't sell 21304, the Doctor Who, the Ideas Doctor Who set. But quite a few people picked that up and had a look at it. It's an unusual set, so again, I might have a little bit of think about the price of that one and see how we feel about what we price that up at the next show. Things that went very, very well at the show, I obviously had a lot of brickheads. So if you remember the show before that, at the Porchester, the Hampshire Brick event, I had an entire collection of all the brickheads that had ever been retired. So I still had loads of those brickheads left. I actually sold a total of 22 different brickhead sets. So I do still have some brickheads left, but they are slowly starting to sell. They're selling very, very well. And as well, other sets that went very, very well were the promo sets. So these are the sets that you get as a gift with purchase if you spend a certain amount of money in Lego stores or on lego.com. They are the sets that you kind of get for free. They don't cost you anything. And they're sets that some of the sets are really good. Say like the Sega Genesis controller, that's quite a good set. But there's some smaller ones as well, like a Valentine's Heart that I had, and some of the Northern Lights diorama seemed to be very, very popular. It's only on at £15, but I sold both of those. So I took quite a selection of these different promo sets and sold 20 of them all together, which is basically a quarter of all the sets that I sold were either brickheads or promo sets. So you can see, that's a lot of different sets. So yeah, they did very, very well indeed. I also sold some of my Ian's bricks. I don't have any to show you actually, but when I go to shows I have some printed bricks that say Ian's bricks on them. If you buy the white one, which is signed on the back by me, that costs you £3. If you're a subscriber to the channel, you also get the red one as well that says thank you for subscribing. And I sold around about 10 lots. I kind of never keep track of exactly how many I sell, but sold 10 lots of those bricks as well. They're only £3 each. I'm not really making any money on those. They cost me a little bit more than the £3 each, but I am recouping some of the costs. by selling those on. And it's nice that people still want those, because I've obviously done quite a few local shows now, but there are still people that come up to me and want to buy the bricks off me. So if you did that, thank you very much. It's always much appreciated. So the thing that people always want to know when I do these videos is, Ian, how much did you make? Well, as you can imagine from what I've talked about so far, it was a very, very successful show. In fact, this is probably in my top 5 takings of all the shows that I've ever done over the past 4 or 5 years. This was definitely in my top 5. It certainly wasn't the most money I've ever taken at a show, but it wasn't far off. So in total on the day, so this is how much money I actually took on the day, was £4,898. That's equivalent in euros to about 5,600 euros, or in US dollars it's around about 6,480. But of course that is just my gross takings. There's a lot of costs involved in doing these shows. Out of that 4,898, 3,423 of that was taken on card. So I have a card reader, which is a sum up card reader. If you go to any of these shows, whether you're selling Lego or anything, you just need to have a card reader these days. I think if you don't have one, you'd be doing yourself out of quite a lot of money. So that's around about 70% of all the money taken at this show was on card. There was also 1,475 in cash, around about 30% of the total, and that's kind of average-ish for most of these shows. I normally find it's 25-75 split, but 30-70, probably a little bit more cash than I would have normally expected, but yeah, kind of normal really. So so there, yeah, that's the breakdown of the cash and the card. However, as I mentioned, there are costs involved. So what are the costs? And here's the breakdown of the different costs. So the cost of the tables. So in total, I spend £170 on the table. So what happens with Brick Festival is you pay your deposit. In this case, it was about a year in advance. I think for next year they're doing it slightly less than that, so it won't be so long to wait. Then about a month before the show, you get an email from Brick Festival saying you need to pay the remainder of your deposits. Now I always go for 2 front tables and 1 backing table. For whatever reason I forgot to order my backing table, so I just paid for my 2 front tables, which there was another £135-ish, and then when I actually got to the show, I did actually ask and say, look, is there any chance of me getting a backing table, which I really needed, because that means I can put more sets out on display. And they were very good, and they said, yes, you've got room, where are you located? That's brilliant. And they I went back to get some stuff from my car. By the time I came back, the table was there. So thank you very, very much for Brick Festival for doing that for me. I'm normally quite good at remembering to book the backing tables as well. This particular instance I forgot, but it was fine. I was able to get the backing table anyway. And that backing table's another £20. So in total, I think I spent around about £170, £175-ish on tables for the show. So that's quite a lot of money to fork up front for these particular shows. There were travel costs as well, so I obviously just drive my car when I go there, so it's just the petrol, the gas to actually get to and from the show. I've added that up to around about £10 to £15, probably closer to £15, so not a sort of a particularly large amount of money for costs. There were no overnight stays, no hotels, anything like that, close enough to go there and back in the day. There was lunch as well, so I did spend around about £10 on a couple of Tesco meal deals and some drinks and things like that. So that kept me going through the day. Now there are also costs for spending, for taking money on cards. So I use a sum up card reader, and their rates are 1.69% on anything that I take. That meant on the card costs, which I mentioned earlier, that there were charges of £57.85. So there's quite a big chunk of money to be taken off. But again, you wouldn't really be without a card reader. I always think it's definitely worth having. I could probably negotiate a better deal, but I think because I do shows fairly intermittently, I wouldn't class myself as sort of a major business user or anything like that. So at the moment I'm relatively happy with the 1.69%. I mean, I prefer not to pay it, but it's a very, very good service. It always seems to work very, very well, and never really had any problems with it on the show day. Signal wasn't great within the hall. It was a little bit of 4G, no 5G or anything like that, but it worked pretty much fine all day, so no problems with that. The major cost, though, with any show is the cost of the actual sets that I've taken. Now, obviously, so I talked before about having some free promo sets, and they're great. You always get some free sets to take, but a lot of the other sets I've obviously had to pay quite a lot of money for. So in total, of the sets that I sold on the day, the total cost of those sets to me, which I bought them for, was £2,877.54. So that is quite a huge chunk of the money that I took on the day to be taken off as sort of part of costs. So in total, for all of those costs there, they come to £3,130.39. That is equivalent to around about €3,570 or 4,140 in US dollars, just to give you some idea of what the current exchange rates are and what that kind of equates to in different currencies. There potentially are other costs to think about as well. Things like wear and tear on my car. There's my time, which I don't really cover, and there's also tax to pay at the end of the financial year. So at the end of in a year next January, I'll have to pay for tax on whatever I've sort of earned this year, minus obviously any expenses of buying Lego and things like that. So there are sort of other hidden costs as well. I don't want to include them at this time because I can't be bothered to work it all out right now. It's too complicated. But you get the idea. That's kind of what I consider my net profit for the day. So the total deductions for the day. So what was my net profit? If we take those two figures away from each other, if we take the total takings minus all of those deductions, that means that my net profit for this show was a very, very healthy £1,767.61. That's equivalent to around about 2,020 in euros or 2,340 in US dollars. So this has to be probably one of my most successful shows, certainly of the year. It's not my most. I think Tunbridge Wells I actually took more money at that show, but definitely a very, very good show, and the profits are very, very good for this show. Again, I sold quite a lot of promo sets and things like that, so that always helps to make a reasonable profit at these shows. Certainly a lot more than the shows I was doing in the summer when I was sort of only doing about £500 or £600 profit, taking around about 2,400, 2,500 on the day. So certainly a much, much better show than some of the earlier shows in the year. But now, what am I going to do with all this money? Well, it's all pretty much already gone straight back into Lego. There was some insiders deals last week. Knowing that the show was going to be quite busy, I did go a bit overboard on the Saturday morning, the day before the show, and bought a load of stuff from Lego Insiders. So kind of already spent that money, really. So yeah, that's all just going to go straight back into Lego sets that I'll be keeping for a couple of years and then taking to shows maybe in a couple of years' time. Yeah, so that's kind of what happens with all the money. It just goes straight back into Lego, and yeah, the whole sort of cycle continues, really. So yeah, as a show, I thought it was very, very successful. I didn't, unfortunately, at the show get round to go around and have a look at some of the models and things like that. The models that were there were very, very good, but I'd say it wasn't the largest venue in the world, and I think possibly there could have been maybe one or two slightly some bigger things, some better displays, but again, I'm not quite sure where they would put them. It's always easy to say that have more displays and better things in there, but sometimes it's where would you put these things. But I think all in all, it was a very good show. Now, one of my thoughts as to why it was such a good show, I know this time last year, a lot of shows in and around the Black Friday period just weren't very, very good for Lego shows. But I think Chichester had a few things going for it. So, first show at this particular location in Chichester. Chichester's not got the biggest population in the world. I think it's around about 120,000-ish maybe people, so it's got a reasonable-ish population, but also you're quite close to other places, maybe like Bognor Regis, maybe even Littlehampton perhaps, if you know the south coast at all, places which haven't had brick shows and brick festivals. I was talking to somebody else about how these shows are promoted, and they do really go all in and promote these shows in and around the city. I know they do things on radio adverts, as TV adverts, Facebook adverts, things like that. They put posters up in the sports halls and other places like that. So I think unless you are sort of based within the city that the show is happening, then people might not know that there's a show is there, which is why, even though there have been lots and lots of shows in Portsmouth, which isn't that far away, 20 minutes away, something like that, it's really not that far, but if you don't go to Portsmouth and you're not from Portsmouth, you probably wouldn't have seen those shows advertised in the past. Also, the area is relatively affluent. It is, the south coast of England. It is quite an affluent area. House prices are very expensive, which is why I rent and can't afford a house, because it is very, very expensive down here. So that helps as well. It is quite an affluent area, and it's close to other places, as I say, like Bognor Regis, which haven't had a show yet. There's quite a big population there as well, and so there's the whole demographic really of that particular area which hadn't had a show before. Just very good, and definitely would go to a Chichester show again. I'm hoping they're going to do one again next year, and if so, I'll hopefully get my name down for it, because it's a really nice local one to go to. I always find that the second shows that they ever do at a location tend not to be quite as good as the first ever show that they do in a particular city, but we'll have to wait and see. It's probably a long way off, but I would definitely go back if I could. So what is up next for me? So I've got 2 more shows left this year. I've got one this weekend on Sunday, and that is the Bracknell Brick Festival, which is the 30th of November. And then 2 weeks after that, I've got the Southampton or Eastleigh Brick Festival, and that's on the 14th of December. And then it all starts all again in the new year. I've got shows in January in quite a few locations as well. So I'll probably post the details of those as we get closer to the new year. But all in all, very, very good show indeed. Thank you to everybody that came and bought something from me. I know there are quite a few people that subscribed to my channel that bought a few things from me or just came over to say hello. Thank you very, very much for that. But that's pretty much it now for this video. Thank you very much, Chichester. It was a wonderful experience, and hope to see you in the next video soon. Take care, bye for now.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe.